In this episode, we're going to make the ultimate spooky experience for our guests with the hellish hybrids. Hello everyone, thank you so much for watching me build this Jurassic World Evolution 2 park. We are nearing the end of the horror half of this Jekyll and Hyde park. This will be the final section of that. And as I've been saying this entire time, I've been saving the best for last. Well, maybe not necessarily the best for last. You know, we can disagree on the hybrids, but definitely the spookiest and the most horrific for last, which I definitely think the hybrids are. So we've dug like this hole in the world, like the depths of hell, and that's exactly where we're going to place the hybrids. And at first, I thought I wanted to have a path going down there, but then I changed my mind. What I actually wanted to do is lower it even further, as you can see right here, and it just felt like the perfect excuse to use the zip lines again. Just once more, please. Just once more with feeling. Look, it's the new shiny toy. It's just fun to use, okay? So let me have this, please. Let me have this. So just digging this down, and by using the zip lines, I've eliminated the need for there to be a gentle slope that our guests can walk up and down. So that's why I felt like I could go a little bit deeper with it. And right now I'm just blending like this really dark rock texture with the rest of the environment. And of course, this is supposed to be like ash, you know, it's all burnt out. It's hell, basically. It's hell in a park, and that's where our guests will be ziplining into. So the idea here is yeah, you're literally just ziplining into the bowels of places you don't want to be. And now that brown on the ground looks very suspicious. No, I just thought that it would be a really cool use of that. What I didn't want to do is have people also zip line back up, right? Because then the tower would be astronomically tall. I think it would be absolutely ridiculous. So, guess zip line down into hell. This is gonna be another weird video, I can already tell. But yeah, guess zip line down into hell, get the adrenaline pumping, and give them like that first exciting overview of what they're getting themselves into. And they're gonna get out of it with a dedicated Hyperloop system. And you can already see that I placed a Dominion Biosyn expansion power station down there. And we're gonna be putting one of them up on top as well. And that's gonna be how people get back up. So it's one-way traffic for the zipline, and it's one-way traffic for the Hyperloop. At least that's how you have to imagine it, right? As I always say, even with how much the game has improved over the past year, we still have to use our imagination just a teeny tiny bit. So here you go, I'm placing that second power station, and I'm gonna connect the two, and that's going to be the exit for guests to come back out of hell. I don't know. I have a feeling this might get demonetized. I don't know. Just an inkling. Like, how often can you say hell and descending into hell without the YouTube algorithm thinking, wait, what? I thought you said this was about dinosaurs. What are you talking about? But anyway, I just felt like that was a more interesting mode of transportation to end with than just having a path go down there. I'm just filling up this little spot with a shop over there because it just worked out that way. I finally remembered to customize at least one of them, at least with the colors. I'm trying, okay? It's one of the things I really struggle with. Now, something I also addressed in like my top 10 tips for the zip lines is I really like using a viewing tower to give a view of the zipliners, because personally I would find that hilarious. I could be up there for like an hour watching people crap their pants as they ride that zipline down completely unsecured to that seat. You know, I'd just be up there with my popcorn just waiting waiting for one of them to fall or to pee themselves. Oh man, that's kind of dark and disgusting. But yeah, I just really love putting viewing towers right by the zipline so guests can watch other guests do ill-advised things. The entrance towards the zipline, I felt like that should be given some importance, some gravitas, you might even say, if we get particularly fancy with it. So that's why I went with the monorail quote-unquote arch again. I've used that idea several times throughout this park, mostly when people can switch over from the spooky side to what's going to be the happy side, which we will start working on after this episode, which I'm kind of excited about, as you can tell. But yeah, I felt like this is the final attraction, you know, this is the climax of the park. This is the ultimate spooky experience. So that's why I felt like it needed a little bit something extra than just, oh hey, this path branches off. So that's why I used the monorail arch, like I said. And I actually use the monorail for that purpose more often in previous parks as well. It's just a fun way to create some height in your park, some decorative height. And I'm just placing a ton of trees around to really isolate this path, enclose it, make it feel claustrophobic and, you know, spooky with the biome trees. And I think in the end that worked out pretty well. I'm also going to add a little bit of decoration off to the side. Not quite sure when I'm going to start on that. But yeah, I just realized that only trees was kind of a wasted opportunity. We also needed a bit of decoration. So here you go. I'm like going through the thought process. And what I always do is I just start shopping around. And then I realized, oh, this is cool. A big dinosaur cage. So I put a big dinosaur cage down, got rid of that tree over there to open up the view line. What's that called? Like line of sight. There you go. To open up line of sight a little bit. Placing some of the dark rocks around, and now going in with more trees to fill up the empty space. And I'm also going to be using the recolorable lights here. And of course for this section we're going to be using reds, because, you know, red, hellfire. Are you listening, YouTube algorithm? Anyway. So, there you go. So, it's just like adding a little bit of a red glow to that cage, make it look extra spooky. Of course, we have to add some torches, you know, the fires of hell. Oh, good God, I'm gonna get myself in so much trouble. I did have a lot of fun building this, though. It's something, I guess, that has been in the back of my mind since I started this park build. Like, this was always going to be the finale, and it's interesting how that evolved over the course of building the park. You know, I think it was about midway when I realized that it would be cool to start digging down to sort of represent going deeper, going more into danger, feeling like evoking that feeling of being trapped. So yeah, that's interesting how that evolved. And even though I've been thinking about it for a while, I still had to play around quite a bit as I was building this. I did cut out me second guessing myself a couple of times, because initially I tried out some different ideas, particularly with just small, like, holding pen kind of enclosures for the hybrids, but I actually decided against that. But I did try all of that stuff out. And I guess that's like a little, I don't know, it might feel like a really useless tip, but I actually think it's useful. Just don't be afraid to start over. Don't be afraid to try out stuff. Don't think to yourself, well, I already spent 10 minutes doing this, and even though I don't like it, I guess I better stick with it. You know, it's okay to start over and to change your mind. And, you know, just try out some stuff. See if it works. And if it doesn't, start over. That's super, super easy. So I did that several times, as I said. But I decided to go with something quite simple but effective, I think. That tree was in the way, so I had to get rid of that one. I always test the zip lines to make sure that there aren't any trees or branches which would very, 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 very much hurt on our guests. So when they come, like when they zip line down into hell, whee! They come into like this teeny tiny guest area, and I wanted to add a guest area just because I did something similar with like the Spino Swamp in the previous episode, right? There was this little shop that was only accessible if guests dared to ride the quote unquote power line zip line, right? If you're interested in that episode, it's the previous episode of this building series. You know, they would zip down the zip lines, and there was like this special shop down there that they could only reach if they dared to take that zip line, and you could like buy special stuff there, you know, something like that. And I wanted to do the same thing over here because in terms of like when you think about it being a theme park still, I'm obviously not literally creating hell here. It's just a hell themed section of the theme park. Commercially, I feel like people would want a souvenir of that, right? They'd want to get something to show off that they've been to this part of the park. They've dared to go here. So that's why I wanted to add that little guest section. And it just turned out that with the way the power station and the zipline building were laid out, it was broad enough to actually have 3 buildings. So there you go. We have all 3 of them. We don't have a restroom, but I feel like that only adds to the spookiness. Like, you know, am I gonna be able to have this experience without crapping my pants? Who knows? Stay tuned. Okay, so what I ended up doing is just this really simple semi-circular path. And then obviously the inside of the semicircle is going to be an exhibit, and on the outside are going to be 2 more exhibits. And what I did was line it with the invisible fence. We've used that invisible fence, making guests feel like they are actually inside the enclosure. We've used that idea several times already in this park, but I just happen to think that it's really effective for that spooky feeling, like really feeling that you're vulnerable and unprotected as you walk among these super dangerous dinosaurs. So that's why I went with that idea again over here. But like I said, I did initially toy with some different iterations of this, and of course that included going back to the start of this park, where we had like the big concrete walls with the holes in it, like these surprise moments, that also could have worked. But I decided to go for this more open layout, especially with how small the section ended up being, how small the exhibits ended up being. This at least visually opened it up a little bit. And I thought that just feeling, how do I phrase this? Like, it's like a unique biome, essentially, right? The hell biome. And I didn't want people to be enclosed by fences. I wanted them to see the entirety of the environment. I guess that's the only way I could really put it. So with the invisible fences, I went. It was pretty difficult to make this quote-unquote biome work, because there's not a whole lot you can do with it. So it's just the one ground texture. I added in a teeny tiny bit of water. That's really teeny tiny. I'm gonna bring back a little bit more of it for a special idea I had later. We'll get to it. So it's basically just water, a little bit of terrain elevation, as you can see in the middle over there, and rocks. It's just gonna be a lot of rocks. But I didn't want to use any of the foliage brushes here and bring in the greenery, because it really had to stay this completely like devastated look, you know? I really wish that the scorched earth part of the Dominion Biosyn expansion campaign, which I haven't even played that part myself yet. One of my moderators reminded me of this, like, hey, did you ever play that? And then I was reminded, no, I did not. But I do know the gist of it. I know how it looks. And I know that there is like this special effect on the trees, right? Where they are just completely decimated. They're completely destroyed. They're burnt out. And I really wish that they would make that available for us to play with on this map, because it's just another way to make this map even more unique, you know, in combination with the unique trees and the unique terrain paints, the fog effects. Those are all excellent, but would have been even better if we also had those burnt out trees. Now, I contemplated for a really long time what to do over here. You can see me sort of like thinking, do I like this? Do I like this? Do I commit to it? And yes, I do end up committing. So what I ended up doing was lining this path entirely on both sides with these biosyn lights in the red color. Just to create like a different effect, I guess. The red lights are obviously super spooky, but I also really like the effect that happens when you walk through this. It's almost hypnotic. There's something like ritualistic about it. It's just weird. It evokes a weird feeling, in my opinion. And you'll see that at the end of the video when I go into first person mode and I walk along this path. You can see that it is a weird effect, and I kind of like it. You can sort of hear like the hum in the background, like some weird stuff is going on. So yeah, that's what I went with for the look of this path, just because it's something different from what I did in the rest of the park, and obviously this section had to be entirely different from everything else, right? So that's what I went with. Now for the dinosaurs, as I just keep placing my lights, obviously we have the Scorpios Rex, the Indoraptor, and the Indominus. The Indominus, I'm happy to report, actually has like a little bit of history with this park build. In case you've missed or you've forgotten the first couple of episodes, I actually made an Indominus in the very first episode so I could use her to bash holes into concrete walls and to use those for maximum effect for the exhibits, right? Those were like the viewpoints into the exhibits of the Dilophosaurus and the Troodon, if I recall correctly. And Carnotaurus as well. So that specific Indominus Rex, I've kept her in like a little holding pen this entire time during this entire build, and that's going to be the Indominus Rex that we end up placing in this hellish environment. Now here you see what I was talking about. I'm gonna create a little bit more water so the water is deeper, so that when we put the Spinosaurus skull in there, the base of it is under the surface of the water, so it's a little bit more hidden, and it just creates that spooky effect of that big skull just lying there, making you wonder about the story behind it. You know, how did the Scorpios Rex kill a Spinosaurus? Honestly, if you're a guest and you're walking through this horror side of the park, you have to wonder, wait, how many Spinosauruses died for this park? Because I've used that skeleton and skull decoration a lot throughout this park. Speaking of stuff that I use a lot, rocks. Like I said, this entire environment is basically just the terrain texture and a lot of rocks. And I use a lot of rocks just in the absence of trees. And initially I wanted to place no trees at all. But as I got further and further into placing the rocks, I realized that, you know, there's no amount of rocks that can fill this tree-shaped hole in my heart. So in the end, I did end up adding some trees. We'll get to it. But yeah, the rocks, even though it's a really cool look, it just felt a little bit too empty. It feels so empty without trees. So that's another thing. You know, I changed my mind midway through, and that should be okay. This is a safe environment. We can all support each other. So as I go through placing this ton of rocks, all of these Dwaynes, like we're cloning Dwaynes over here, the next episode is going to be for the happy side of the park, and I am happy to get to the happy side. I am gonna miss the spooky side, especially because there's more that I wanted to do with it if we had more space. But I'm inspired to get started with like the happy and the polished side of this, so that's gonna be exciting, and I hope that you're excited as well. I'm looking forward to like the ideas that you can take away from it for your own parks. But what I want to address is that it's mid-November already, and I really want to finish this park before December. And we basically have half a park to go, right? And this half took, well, 9 episodes technically, but we did do 1 episode on the happy side as well. But let's just say, for the ease of it, 9 episodes on one half. And by definition, we're only halfway through. So I feel like for the happy side, I might do like bigger and faster speed builds. Like this is only 200% speed, right? And it's just one relatively small section of the park that we're covering in a single video. I feel like for the happy side, I might need to incorporate larger sections of the park, do builds for that, and speed it up a little bit more to bring it down to like bite-sized episodes, to get through that build a little bit more quickly, because I don't want to still be working on this in December when there's already gonna be like the obvious Christmas themed stuff, right? So just a little note for that. I hope that it's still gonna be fun for the people who are enjoying this series, and for the people who haven't been enjoying this series, I don't know, maybe they'll prefer the more speedy approach there. Now, as I've gone from placing a lot of rocks to placing a lot of lights, I should say that they are white right now, but we're going to be recoloring them. But they're not all going to be red. That's like a little spoiler alert. But I'm just placing a ton of these lights all the way around to illuminate the rocks, because I really like that effect. And as I was doing this, I was once more reminded and had my nose pressed into the fact that we really need those lagoon lights, those underwater lights that we have with the big light beams that you can aim at stuff. We need those to use above water. We need that so badly, and it would be such an easy thing to do because it technically already works. Aside from the fact that you can't place it, you can already like test it out and see what that would look like. So it works. There's just like this arbitrary limit on it, so that's super weird. But yeah, we really need that, so I wouldn't have to use this many lights in the future. But for now, this is how it's gonna be, and I'm recoloring all of them orange first, and then I'm gonna be recoloring some of them red, because what I wanted to evoke here is sort of like this sense that there's little fires all over the place, right? So that's why I went with this many lights, even though they are visible. Not sure how I feel about that, but so many lights and a combination of red and orange to simulate that fiery effect. I didn't want to use a ton of torches because I felt like that would look even sillier than this. I admit that this also looks a teeny tiny bit silly sometimes. But if you squint, I think it's a pretty cool effect. So I'm happy with how that turned out. And it makes it a little bit more lively that not every single light is red, you know. So there's that. Now, this is basically done, and you can see me thinking right here and realizing we need some more stuff, right? So when in doubt, what do? You add like this ritualistic location, this ritualistic circle with torches. Now, I refrained myself from using torches in the rest of this hellish landscape, but obviously we couldn't leave them out entirely, so I made like this weird altar, I guess. It was kind of a disappointment that I couldn't make more fits, but there you go. We have this circular altar with another Spinosaur skull in the middle, which is like, I don't know, we pray to the Spinosaur skull because we pray to the Spinosaurus god because we've sacrificed so many for the build of this park. I'm so sorry. So another circle of torches. Can never have too many torches, of course. And I think the last thing that I did for this build was add those trees, as I felt like even after adding those little torch altars, it still felt too empty, and I really like how the light affects the trees, how it illuminates the branches. So that's why I had no qualms about adding trees at this point. Of course, I did use like the brown dead trees that come in this tree pack for the Biosyn domain, or the Biosyn Sanctuary map, I should say. So it doesn't introduce any greenery. You know, it's brown trees. They're dead. They're in hell. Now I feel kind of sad for the trees because they're dead and in hell. Anyway, so I just use these to fill up the space a little bit more and make it just look a little bit more visually interesting, I guess. Not really rocket science or anything too special about it. Just needed a little extra oomph, I guess. And oomph clearly means trees. Oomph is basically just It's Latin, actually. Is Latin for trees. When you, yeah. I'm talking nonsense at this point. Alright, here we go. So we're gonna make the Indoraptor. And of course, we're gonna make the Scorpios Rex. I decided to make 2 Scorpios Rexes because while I do really like the look of the black Scorpios Rex from the series, I also really like the patterned Scorpios Rex that we get in the game. So I went with both. And here is the Indominus Rex, our wall breaker that has been helping out, you know, since the start of this park build, which is kind of funny. So I'm happy that I kept that specific Indominus Rex to use in the park. I think that's pretty funny, actually. So with those hybrids flying in, here we go. We have the Indominus Rex, and the Indoraptor is coming in hot. I really like how this section turned out. It is quite simple, but I think it's yeah, I think you can see over here that the effect of those lights is kind of scary. It's just weird. It's, yeah, it has an off vibe to it that I think works very well in this section of the park. Now we have touchdown for the Indoraptor. Bang. There she is. I like it. I'm happy with how this turned out, and I hope that you enjoyed it as well. As always, if you're not subscribed yet, please consider subscribing and ringing the notification bell so you will always be notified when I make new uploads. And I hope that you'll be here for the next episode for the happy side. Alright, thank you so much for watching, liking, subscribing, and until next time, enjoy the game.